Good afternoon. Mindanaoan lawyers filed a petition before the Supreme Court to stop the Senate's impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte. Petitioners including lawyers Israelito Torion, James Reserva, Hilary Olga, and former Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board Chair Martin Delgra filed the petition for certiorari and prohibition on Tuesday, February 18. Torion is also the legal counsel of alleged qualified trafficker and the detained senatorial candidate Apollo Kibuloy. The petition seeks to issue a temporary restraining order and declare the impeachment complaint against Duterte null and void. The group is questioning the impeachment process arising from the complaint against Duterte, praying that the Senate would not entertain the complaint. Torion describes the impeachment against Duterte as constitutionally deficient and jurisdictionally void, saying it did not consider the 3 prior filed complaints as well as due process to the Vice President. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court on Tuesday may tackle during its en banc session a petition urging the High Tribunal to compel the Senate to immediately begin Duterte's impeachment trial. This petition was filed on February 14 by lawyer Catalino Generillo Jr., a former special counsel of the Presidential Communication and Good Government. The House of Representatives impeached Duterte on February 5 after 215 lawmakers signed the 4th impeachment complaint against the Vice President. However, the Senate adjourned its session the same day without tackling the articles of impeachment against Duterte. Senate President Chis Escudero previously said that Duterte's impeachment trial would begin after the 4th State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos in July. Escudero also said he had no plans to request a special session to tackle the impeachment. Former President Rodrigo Duterte is facing a complaint of inciting to sedition over his remarks suggesting the killing of senators to make way for his party's senatorial candidates. Criminal Investigation and Detection Group Chief Major General Nicolas Torre III filed a complaint of inciting to sedition and unlawful utterances before the Department of Justice on Monday, February 17. During the Partido Demokratiko Pilipino proclamation rally on February 13, Duterte joked about using a bomb to kill 15 senators to create vacancies for the senatorial candidates he is supporting. According to Torre, it should no longer be acceptable to make those statements and then pass it off as a joke, citing the chaos the country experienced in 6 years. Torre says this kind of mess about killing should be left behind in the past, saying that offering excuses for such remarks is already too much. Torre adds that he is filing complaints before a Filipino citizen and CIDG chief. He explains that such statements from a former president could influence blind supporters into following him, even comparing it to Duterte's term as president when he encouraged the killing of drug addicts, leaving thousands dead. Asked if he will also encourage senators to file their own complaints against Duterte, Torre responds that it would depend on their appreciation of the situation. Torre also emphasizes that the complaints were beyond politics, asserting that laws cannot be disregarded so easily. The complaint will be evaluated by the National Prosecution Service as to whether it has sufficient evidence to warrant a preliminary investigation. Under Article 142 of the Revised Penal Code, inciting to sedition carries the penalty of 6 months and 1 day to 6 years in prison and a fine not exceeding 400,000 pesos. Meanwhile, under Article 154, unlawful utterances carries the penalty of 1 month and 1 day to 6 months in prison and a fine of up to 200,000 pesos. A Delta Airlines jet crash landed at the Toronto Pearson Airport in Canada, flipping upside down and leaving at least 18 people injured. The airline says the Endeavour Air Flight 4819 with 80 people on board was landing on Monday afternoon, February 17 in Toronto, having flown from Minneapolis in the U.S. state of Minnesota. No explanation of the cause of the accident or how the plane ended up flipped with its wings clipped has been provided. The airport's fire chief, Todd Aitken, says it is still too early to speculate, but notes that the runway was dry and there were no crosswind conditions. He confirms that 18 people were injured in the accident with no fatalities. Earlier, paramedic services told Agence France Presse that the 3 people were critically injured, specifically a child, a man in his 60s, and a woman in her 40s. Paramedic services also said all wounded, including those with minor injuries, were taken to area hospitals either by ambulance or helicopter. Meanwhile, Toronto Airport Authority Chief Executive Deborah Flint says the incident did not involve any other planes. She says emergency crews reached the site within minutes and quickly evacuated the passengers, with some already reunited with family and friends. The crash comes after other recent air incidents in North America, including a mid-air collision in Washington that killed 67 people and a medical transport plane crash in Philadelphia that left 7 dead. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good afternoon.